I love playing bad games, and Steam happens to have thousands of them. Most of these are titles that are so bad they'll make you regret the fact that you bought them or even spent your time trying them out. Scams, cash grabs, even just poorly optimized projects. But if you want the real gems beneath the garbage, you're going to have to wade through the muck. That's what I'm here for. Today, I'm going to be taking another look at 9 of the worst rated games on Steam. I chose different projects from among the mixed, negative, and overwhelmingly negatives. If you've seen this series before, then you already know that I try to give each game on this list a fair shake. I attempt to see both the good and the bad with each title. My intention is not just to trash all of these poorly received games, but to see where they failed and maybe where they succeed. Also, to ultimately understand them. If you want to understand why something is good, it helps to understand why something is bad. If you enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, as it really helps me out. You can also subscribe to my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel further and get some extra content not available on YouTube. Hey Dad, it's me, your favorite son, and today I'd like to once again talk about bad games. Steam Slug is a third-person shooter game developed by Openoko Entertainment. It was released on September 9th, 2009, and currently has mostly negative review status on Steam, with 10 total reviews, 20% of those being positive. Steam Slug was originally released in 2009, but this Steam version of the game was released in March of 2025. Strategy First has brought the game to modern storefronts for the masses to enjoy, because this game must be enjoyed. Steam Slug is a travesty in just about every way possible. The light brown color scheme, the muted tones making every model just blend together into one big mesh, the absolutely broken gameplay mechanics, the bosses that are impossible to kill without cheesing, and the horrific cutscenes. This game is terrible, but I also absolutely love it. I've never played anything like this game before. Steam Slug is a third-person shooter with a steampunk aesthetic. Can I say what this game is about, though? Not really. The story is damn near incomprehensible. I can tell you what I know, though. Our main character is a guy named Evan McRyan, who sounds like Stallone trying to do a British and American Southern accent at the same time, all while he's trying to chew on 25 marbles.
The strapping fellow in a leather jacket is me, Evan McRyan. The second guy in uniform, General Gromit. Now Gromit thinks I'm a bulked-out mercenary, but he needs me.
In the introduction cutscene, McRyan is heading to meet General Gromit. Apparently there's a 10,000-pound bounty on the head of a man named Dr. Strauss. It's strange because the game seems to try and paint McRyan as this tough badass, but then sometimes he just gets really scared and backs out of a conversation or something.
I'd rather die here and now. Any other suggestions? 5,000 pounds. 10, and it's settled. McRyan? Okay, 11. 9 for me, and 2 for you. Just don't scream anymore, promise.
He also has the least threatening one-liners that I've ever seen in a game.
What you did, I'm gonna suck your eyes out through your nose.
So we're sent out to try and take down Dr. Strauss. This involves heading through a bunch of levels and defeating mechanical beasts in our way. I think that the mechanical beings were actually human at some point, mostly because a woman named Angel says so during one of the boss battles in the game. Also, the cutscenes try to humanize the machines at one point, but McRyan doesn't give a fuck.
So, now you look like my favorite can of peaches. Maybe I'll start to open you with a rusty tin opener. Or would you prefer to start talking?
You want to scare me with pain? You're pathetic. Pain is our life. Pain is our motion. Pain fills us from inside. Pain ties together human flesh and dead metal. I hate you for your blessing, your gift to live without pain, for the ability to live.
Great speech, friend. Tugs at the heartstrings. Really excites pity.
The game itself is awful. It's mostly a standard shooter. We have a variety of weapons and some grenades. At the beginning of the game, we're tasked with moving through a level and taking out beasts that appear from these spawning buildings. The buildings have to be destroyed to stop the enemies from spawning, but they take a ton of hits before they explode. The ground enemies are not even worth talking about. Most of them are defeated in one hit, and they barely do any damage whatsoever. That doesn't mean that Steam Slug is not hard though, because the game just randomly spikes in difficulty at certain points for no reason. After the first level of shooting, what are virtually moving cardboard targets, we have to take out a massive machine covered in cannons. We must shoot the side cannons before attacking the central body though. The level after this is similar in challenge to the first, and is literally just the first level, but at night and in reverse. But the boss battle after this is a travesty and took me forever to get through. We're put up against 3 of these steam towers, massive walking cannons on 3 legs. The towers both have Gatling guns on the bottom of their central sphere and a rocket launcher on the top of their body. So we have 3 towers that are constantly launching volleys of missiles at us. These missiles, if they hit close to us, will do a decent amount of damage. If they hit us directly, then I'm pretty sure you just straight up die. Luckily, we have 3 lives in each stage, and each time we revive, the enemies keep their current health. If we lose all 3 lives, we have to restart the level fresh. There are power-ups all over the area though. Scattered throughout each level are small boxes. These can be picked up to receive health, a shield that prevents damage for a short period, ammo for our weapons, or a power-up that increases the damage of our weapons for a brief time. After dying many times to these guys, I figured out that the strategy here is to run around and pick up all of the ammo, and then pick up one of the power-ups and try to hit these guys with as many rocket launcher rounds as you can. Even if you manage to do this without dying though, you're still going to run out of rocket launcher rounds. None of the other weapons that you have at this point do any damage at all to these things. The only one that does a bit of damage is the minigun, which you get in the same level, but you sort of have to get lucky and just hope you don't get hit while unloading into this thing for a few minutes. Oh, also, the power-ups aren't static. They have physics properties attached to them. So if you're running towards a power-up and a rocket hits the ground, that power-up box is going to go flying and you'll have to chase it down. If you're lucky and you manage to get past this part of the game, you'll then be treated to another boss fight that not only has 3 of these steam towers again, but also a boss engine in the center, a large wandering mini-boss enemy, tons of mechanical goon spawners, and snipers posted above the arena. Luckily, the game is broken, so it was pretty easy for me to get into a spot where I could just attack the towers from afar. It took a while, but it worked. I also didn't mention that Steam Slug is a pretty short game, only about an hour or 2. In that short time, I felt every single emotion I possibly could. Rage at the broken encounters, fear that the game just wouldn't end, joy at the ridiculous cutscenes, disgust at the aesthetic design, and sadness when it was all finally over. I can't say I recommend this game as, like I said, it is a bit of a mess, but I can't say that I didn't have some fun with the absolute jank that is Steam Slug. I'll just end on the words from this reviewer because they said it better than I ever could. Why in the world this game has so funny aesthetic and third-person painkiller in steampunk world, but everything else is just pure shit from rotten ass? Exo Digger is a third-person simulator game developed by Torna Games. It was released on June 7th, 2025, and currently has negative review status on Steam, with 12 total reviews, 16% of those being positive. Exo Digger is heavily inspired by A Game About Digging a Hole, a small indie game that released early in 2025. A Game About Digging a Hole was incredibly popular because it tapped into the innate human urge to dig a large hole in your backyard. The physical representation of your effort and trials is displayed immediately in the world. It's satisfying, it's fun, and it's addicting. Exo Digger isn't really inspired by A Game About Digging a Hole, but it just straight up rips off that concept. The only real difference between the two games is that Exo Digger is set on Mars and has more of a sci-fi vibe than a cozy backyard aesthetic. In Exo Digger, we start out with a shovel and have to dig a hole in a small plot of desert that's out front of our base. Digging in the ground, we can find minerals that can be sold back at the base to earn cash. This money can then be spent on upgrades at the base. We can upgrade our shovel, which increases how efficiently we can dig in the earth. We can upgrade our backpack so that inventory has more slots for minerals, meaning we return to base less often. We can upgrade our battery, which is consumed both by using our digging tool and by using the jetpack to return to the surface. We can upgrade our jetpack itself, and we can increase our suit durability, which is required for deeper exploration. Now, there is one new mechanic in Exo Digger that a game about digging a hole didn't have. We can sell our items in one of two places, the normal marketplace, which is to the right when entering the base, or we can sell them on the smuggler's marketplace, which is off to the left. The smuggler's marketplace isn't always accessible though. Sometimes we won't have the signal to access it, and whether we get the signal is random. If we do manage to access it, we fetch double the income for the items we sell, so pawning things on the smuggler's market is incredibly useful. We can also upgrade the chance that the smuggler's market appears at the shop. Now, Exo Digger, like I said, is almost a one-to-one copy of the aforementioned Hole game, but in the ways that it's different are the ways that it's worse. There's a huge balancing problem in this game. In a game about digging a hole, the progression at the beginning of the game is very slow. For the first 20 minutes or so, you're essentially doing what someone could realistically do in the backyard. That is, until you unlock the drill and just start basically excavating the entire place. But that takes a bit, and those first 20 minutes are so essential to making progression feel consistent and rewarding. Exo Digger doesn't really have this. By about 5 minutes in, you can get a drill and just start going to town. The other problem is that you unlock all of the upgrades far too quickly, and even with all of the upgrades, it doesn't really feel like you can complete the game. I got to the point where I had a ton of money and was super far down into the planet, but I couldn't efficiently get back out with even a maxed out jetpack. And if your battery dies, then you start over from an old save and lose all your progress. There is supposed to be a portal mechanic that allows you to purchase a teleporter, place it down in the ground, and teleport back, but this never worked for me. Maybe I was doing something wrong, or maybe it was a bug, but I couldn't get anywhere with this game after a certain point. Also, to add insult to injury, I died at one point, and the game reloaded my save, only to erase all of the progress that I had made. I still had all of my upgrades and I had my minerals in my inventory, but it completely reset the progress that I actually made digging into the planet. But there's a larger problem with this game in general, and games that try to piggyback off of the success of another smash hit. There's really no evolution here. I have no qualms with someone trying to iterate on a new genre or the success of another game. Successful Souls-likes take the building blocks and create something new or introduce new ideas. Roguelikes do the same, creating new gameplay mechanics that shake things up. If you're going to do this, then you have a responsibility to substantially alter the flow of the game so that there is a reason to check your game out over the original thing. Because at this point, Exo Digger feels like a skin of a game about digging a hole. It feels like there's new sights on the surface in a game when you're going to spend most of your time looking down. But there isn't really anything of substance beyond that. Exo Digger overall is not really worth your time. If you want a game about digging a hole, then just go play a game about digging a hole. Drop Dead the Cabin is a first-person survival shooter game developed by Soul Assembly. It was released on October 29th and currently has negative review status on Steam with 11 total reviews, 18% of those being positive. Drop Dead the Cabin is both a VR shooter and just a regular first-person shooter. You can play the game either way, though most of my playtime was spent on the standard mode rather than the VR. And after playing a few hours of this game, I have to say, it probably doesn't deserve the negative rating that it currently has. The game certainly isn't perfect, but it is functional, and I had a pretty good time with it. In Drop Dead, you start in a cabin. You can gather some weapons, both melee and ranged, as well as some ammo. The entire goal is to survive the onslaught of zombies that you're about to endure, and also power up the communication system in the cabin so that you can get extracted to safety. Zombies will attack you in different waves. Every time the bell tolls, they'll start slowly coming up from the ground and trying to eat you. There are standard zombies that just walk slow and attack, faster variants, ones that walk on all fours, and even larger variants that are much more tanky and do more damage. You can unlock doors that open up new areas and widen the map by spending resource points. These resource points are obtained by killing enemies, and if you kill them with a headshot, you get even more resource points. We can also open chests with these points, which will give us ammunition or new weapons. The general goal is just to collect these fuel cells and place them in a generator, which charges up the communication system. You have to get it to 100% charge before an extraction chopper will come to save you. The game obviously has the same bones as something like Call of Duty Zombies, where we're trying to survive each wave while also getting enough points to advance and unlock new areas. But we also want to keep our ammunition managed so that we don't run out when we're being swarmed by enemies. Overall, the game is kind of fun. It does get to be a bit boring after a while, especially on the standard mode, but there are a variety of weapon upgrades and stat upgrades for you to achieve. Each time you fail a run, you gain experience for your weapons and your character, meaning each time you get a bit stronger for the next run. It's a simple progression system, but it surely keeps the player motivated to move forward. And I really only played on the beginner and normal modes, so I could see getting quite a few hours out of this if it caught you. There are a few problems with the game though. First of all, it's mostly tuned and balanced around VR mode, so playing the game in standard mode is a bit of a cheat. You obviously don't have to take the time to grab ammo from your pack and reload it. You don't have to turn to look around, so things go a lot smoother when you're playing with a mouse and keyboard. But I don't consider this a huge fault with the game since it was meant with VR in mind originally. The other complaint that I have though is that each of the areas that you can access, meaning which doors you can unlock at the edge of the map, are random each time you play. This does introduce some variety to the game, but feels like it provides the player less choice and agency. It leaves less room for developing skill. There's also no map variety, with I believe only one map in the game at this time. I believe that a lot of these issues will be fixed before long though. Drop Dead has a roadmap for 2025, and they plan to implement 4-player support, a quality of life patch, something called Barricade of the Blizzard, and crossplay with MetaQuest users before the end of the year. And as I'm recording this, they just released their 4-player support patch right now. So they're getting close to the end of the road, but if they manage to keep updating the game steadily, I can see it being a pretty fun experience. A lot of the game didn't click for me until I put on the headset though. It's not the perfect VR game either. The melee combat isn't the greatest, and neither is the shooting, but it's pretty damn fun.
Old signal beacon near your location. Find a way to get it powered up so I can zone in on your exact coordinates. Help is on the way.
Looks like this old cab.
And that was just me playing solo. I imagine it would be a blast for you and your friends. A lot of the reviews that I found complain that there wasn't a tutorial in the game, but unless they added this in the month and a half that the game released and didn't put it in the update log on Steam, there literally is. You just have to click the tutorial button on the main menu. If this looks like the kind of thing you'd be interested in, I would recommend checking it out. It's not perfect, but it certainly doesn't deserve the rating that it currently has. Goblin Mutation is a game developed by Richard, and it was released on August 16th, 2025. It currently has negative review status on Steam, with 13 total reviews, 15% of which are positive. Goblin, subtitle Mutation, is a third-person action-adventure game that sees you wandering around a mostly barren world, fighting enemies by interacting with a broken combat system, and wondering how your life got to this point exactly. Goblin Mutation begins in a dark cave as you play a woman, assumingly trying to find her way out. The game doesn't really tell you anything, but just throws you into the deep end. You meet a man named Traveler, who says that he is an old man without fertility, and that he will be killed? And then he tells us to find some minerals nearby. He doesn't give us a quest or anything. He's just here for the lore, you know, the fertility lore. Nearby, we can find a sword and start to fight some enemies. We'll eventually get some armor and some more weapons before being tasked to fight a boss. Goblin Mutation doesn't exactly have the worst combat system ever. It's clearly trying to be something close to a Souls-like game, I think. We have normal attacks, heavy attacks, and dodges. We don't really get hit that hard though, so dodging isn't a huge priority, except for in boss fights. Most of the fodder enemy can be killed in 1 or 2 hits, and they aren't going to damage our health bar that much. But the thing is just so damn buggy. It would have been at least playable. I probably would have sunk a few hours into this just to see what the end of the game looked like. But for some reason, every time you get hit in the game, your attack is disabled. I don't think this is intended. I'm pretty sure it's a bug, because as soon as you dodge, you can attack again. It's probably something to do with a hit animation getting stuck, but this meant that every single time I got hit in combat, I had to dodge away to be able to start attacking again. This becomes a real issue though, because enemies can totally just surround you or get you against a wall and suddenly you're screwed. Sometimes jumping out of the pack will get you some space, but most of the time you just die. Also, another bug I encountered quite frequently was my sword holstering itself during combat for no reason. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't attack at the beginning of the game, because when I would press the left mouse button, my character would just look at her feet. I realized eventually it was because I had to manually unholster my sword, because the game holstered it for me. This game also just has no level design. It became the norm after a while that I would just take the path that I didn't think a normal game would make me go down, because that was often the way that I was supposed to go. Just like very weird paths along the beach where you have to shimmy past this fence to get to the next town in the area. And the main path on the road after the first dungeon just leads you into a level 20 boss that you absolutely can't fight yet. The leveling system is also kind of like a mobile game. You kill one enemy and you level up. You kill a boss and you get like 10 levels. Also, the game, I think, based on its Steam images, is supposed to look like this: bright, sunny, green grass. But sometimes, I'm assuming at night, the game looks like this, and you can't see a fucking thing. I thought this was another glitch in the first dungeon because, yeah, the day and night cycles affect the environments underground as well. But then I realized it was supposed to look that way. I mean, I couldn't even see walls in the dungeon when the time changed. Oh, also, dodge is bound to the shift key, the R key, and the escape key for some reason. I'm not sure what game Goblin Mutation is trying to be. The glider that your character can use leads me to believe it's attempting to be a Breath of the Wild or Genshin Impact style game, but there isn't gacha or microtransactions here. The failure of a combat system leads me to believe that the game is trying to be a Souls-like, but the leveling system makes me feel like it's a poorly ported mobile game. I can't be quite sure what this game was going for, but no matter the answer to that question, the game is unsuccessful. A broken mess of an experience that leaves you wondering what a video game even is. Goblin Mutation broke my brain, and I would not recommend that you try to play it. Cypress Inheritance: The Beginning is a third-person action game developed by Cypress Inheritance. It was released on March 2014 and currently has negative review status on Steam, with 14 total reviews, 7% of those being positive. Cypress Inheritance: The Beginning is a game about Lorna Written. Actually, the Steam description lays out the plot pretty well. Lorna Written has learned of Alfred Cypress, her grandfather whom she has never known. Her family past has always been somewhat of a mystery, and now she learns of an inheritance of which she has no idea of just how important this is actually to her and to others. At the beginning of the game, we see a few cutscenes, one primarily explaining the current mission. Lorna Written is being sent to an island to recover her inheritance, but the military or something is trying to get to it first. But there's also an AI on the island that controls it, and also there's keys to every vault, and also codes to every vault, and caves, or I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty confusing, but there's tons of text in the menus which just sort of run on and function as a tutorial, but not really. Taking a boat, we're thrown onto the island that we have to infiltrate. We need to head to these outposts, get some keys and some assets, etc., etc. The game is open world though and allows us to just run free, deciding where we want to head first. Except there's a lot of problems with this game. Primarily, vehicles get stuck on trees very easily, and in a densely wooded forest, driving is near impossible, so you have to walk. But if you encounter any soldiers, you'll get quickly captured. You're supposed to be able to stun these soldiers with a stun gun, but I just couldn't equip the gun no matter what I did. When you get captured, you get taken to a cell. Escaping is as easy as pressing 2 buttons in the cell, but escaping the facility is another story. The place is massive and takes forever to get out of. You're outfitted with a cloak ability from the beginning so you can sneak around guards, but the game just bugs out sometimes and you're captured even if there aren't soldiers around. So I just ended up in this loop where I was getting captured and escaping, getting recaptured, and doing it all over again. But the most interesting part of Cypress Inheritance, the beginning, is not really the game itself. With every game in these videos, I try to do a bit of research into the developer to get some context for their previous or current work. This allows me to see whether they have a history of making quick cash grabs or passionately developing projects that inspire them. When I started looking into Cypress Inheritance, I realized that the person behind it has been trying to make properties in the series for over a decade. The first thing I found was the website for Cypress Inheritance LLC, which is a company founded in 2012 focused on developing products for the Cypress Inheritance story and franchise. It seems to have started with an idea for a movie script. This fact is repeated many times across the website and various social media profiles. The movie never really came to fruition as far as I can tell, but a mobile game was eventually created called Cypress Legacy, which has now been re-released on Steam. Also, a VR game, the game we previously talked about, Cypress Inheritance: The Beginning, a board game, and also some work into a comic book, animated series, and even a graphic novel. All of these are centered around the character of Lorna Written and her inheritance, as well as the people trying to steal it. I mean, hell, at one point, the Cypress Inheritance Legacy Twitter account was talking about getting a 1/6 scale figure of Lorna Written put up for sale. There's even a soundtrack posted to SoundCloud on the website. The strangest thing is that somehow the Legacy game got actress Saffron Burrows to voice the main character. She's not an A-list star or anything, but she was in Westworld, Reign Over Me, and Troy. As far as I can tell, most everything a part of this series does not work. The games are clunky and mostly broken. The board game, while I did not play it, did not get great reviews from the few videos that I saw, and from what I read of the book released this year, I can tell that it's not great. The writing is mishandled and sort of choppy. It's honestly just difficult to parse and not very good. But at the same time, I can't help but respect this level of dedication for someone to be so interested and absorbed by an idea that they spend years and years trying to put it to paper and to screen. Cypress Inheritance: The Beginning specifically was released in 2014, but 10 whole years later, in 2024, it was ported to Unreal Engine 5 and completely overhauled with a slew of updates. Now, does this mean that I think Cypress Inheritance: The Beginning will be a good game in the future? Probably not. There's nothing really gripping me to the story, and there also haven't been any updates since September of 2024. It seems like there is one person behind this game throwing everything they have at this one idea, and that's honestly kind of commendable. I don't know who is behind this series. The book is co-authored by David DeBoard and someone by the pseudonym CE1 Cypress. The website for the book states that CE1 Cypress doesn't like the spotlight, and it doesn't seem like their name is out there anywhere. And I would not recommend either of the games in the Cypress Inheritance saga, but CE1 Cypress, you keep that crazy fire going, because boy, is it impressive. Skyscraper Simulator is a simulation game developed by Actilogic. It was released on September 9th, 2010, and currently has very negative review status on Steam, with 266 total reviews, 14% of those being positive. Developer Actilogic, in addition to making Skyscraper Simulator, has also developed Industry Empire, Agricultural Simulator Historical Farming, and Agricultural Simulator 2013 Steam Edition. They all have a negative review status on Steam, but we're going to focus on Skyscraper Simulator today. In this game, you can buy various plots of land around the city. These plots of land can be used to build new skyscrapers, and that's sort of the whole goal of the game, to make enough money to buy more plots of land, build more skyscrapers, so on and so forth. In the game, this is done in 3 phases: the excavating stage, the foundation phase, and the construction phase. Each of these phases requires using different machines and types of workers to get the job done. During the excavating phase, you need to purchase excavators and dump trucks. You also need to hire people to work in these excavators and dump trucks. Somehow, you can assign up to 10 people to each machine. Assigning more people means the machines run with more efficiency. You can also assign workers to the administration team, which is supposed to reduce the costs of the project, and to the maintenance team, which prevents equipment breakdown and ensures quicker repair. Now, the main gameplay mechanic here is balancing your construction chain. If you have too many excavators or they're too efficient, then they'll be waiting on the dump trucks to haul the dirt away. And the same goes for the inverse. So you have to ensure that your production evens out and that the machines are always running. This, in and of itself, wasn't a bad mechanic, and I found it to be an interesting idea, but it probably would have been an interesting idea in a larger game that had literally anything else for you to do. Because once you get this balance tuned in, then you literally just have to sit and wait for the phase to be completed, which can take quite a long time. Once that phase is done, you can move on to the foundation phase, which requires buying some concrete mixers and hiring some foundation layers. You have to perform the same balancing act here, selling the equipment you don't need anymore as well, and you wait a while and the foundation is complete. And then the construction phase. I could never balance this phase out perfectly. There's almost too much going on here because there's multiple separate chains for the steel and concrete parts of the building, but they're all going through the cranes, which makes it pretty difficult to tell which of your production chains are having a problem. Regardless, once this is done, your building is complete, and you can now either try to sell it or just keep renting it out, which the game does automatically, and you continue generating passive income. Most of the time, though, I had to once again wait after finishing a building. I didn't have enough money to start the next one, so I had to sit around and watch my income slowly rise until it was enough to build another skyscraper. Ugh, what a hard life. Building a skyscraper like this maybe takes about 30 minutes, which is a ridiculously long time for what you're actually doing, which is just buying a few pieces of equipment and hiring some people. And then after that, you can just do that over and over again for another 10 buildings or so. Now, the focused in part of this game is obviously incredibly boring. There's really no progression, it's just doing the same thing over and over again, but even the eagle's eye view of this game is broken as well. There's nothing to aspire to, there's no larger goal, there's no framework for the game. You can't upgrade skills by completing buildings, you can't win anything. The money that you make just goes into more buildings so that you can make more money, but you can't do anything with that money. And you start off with a ridiculous amount, so getting the number to go higher doesn't really give you any satisfaction either. The game, of course, doesn't look great, but that's probably mostly because it's from 2010. One particularly lazy part of the graphics, though, is that when excavating, the ground texture just stretches down instead of having a separate texture for the side of the ground, or hell, even reusing the one that's on top. It sure does simulate something, but I'm not sure that it's skyscrapers. It simulates the vapid, meaningless search for growth and depth and building tall buildings that make you more money. Maybe Skyscraper Simulator was really meant as a way to deter you from ever trying to get into land ownership or chase that cold hard cash, because God, does it make it seem so fucking boring. Idle Atomic is an incremental RPG game developed by Checkbox Entertainment. It was released on July 15th, 2021, and currently has mixed review status on Steam, with 458 total reviews, 61% of those being positive. Idle Atomic is an idle game that sees you venturing through a wasteland, defeating monsters and crafting gear to get stronger. Your character will constantly move up the screen, auto-attacking enemies that it comes across. Along the sides of the road, you can pick up scrap piles, chests, and kill bugs to get extra loot. By killing enemies, you gain currency. This currency can be used to increase damage, attack speed, crit chance, armor penetration, etc. In fact, armor is a large part of the game, and as you get to higher waves and enemies start to get stronger, their armor goes up considerably, so having a good chance of getting your attacks in is very important. Collecting scrap on the sides of the road allows you to craft. You can make nuts, screws, metal sheets, and all of these can be used to make upgrades for your character. An auto looting bot that picks up scrap for you, a new suit that increases your stats. Your character also has a skill tree, and every time you defeat a particularly difficult boss, you get a skill to spend in this tree. Speaking of skills, there are 5 in the game: strength, crafting, scavenging, hunting, and biomagic. Strength is just your raw damage and levels up as you kill enemies. Scavenging levels up the more that you pick up scrap. Crafting levels up the more that you create spare parts from that scrap. Hunting levels up the more you collect bugs, and biomagic levels up the more that you cast spells on yourself. The most interesting mechanic in Idle Atomic is its prestige system. In most incremental games, once you reach a certain point, your growth starts to fall off. You can often prestige or ascend and start over with permanent stat upgrades that ensure you keep getting stronger or more efficient. Idle Atomic allows you to do this with individual skills. Once your strength reaches level 20, you can prestige that strength and get permanent upgrades to that specific stat. The stat starts over from level 1 again, but you keep those upgrades that you got from prestiging. It's a pretty engaging little system, and the skill mechanic was something that I hadn't really seen in an incremental game like this before. The rest of the game, overall, is pretty fun as well. The systems are engaging, the game's pixel art is very nice, and there are a lot of things to keep you occupied. There are task upgrades you can get from collecting coins, you can pursue achievements to get more currency, daily tasks give you small rewards, quests at the top of the screen constantly keep you going. There's just a lot to keep your attention at all times, and the whole thing is pretty well made. So why does this have mixed reviews on Steam? Well, according to the Steam reviews, many users experienced complete save wipes even after logging hundreds of hours into the game. I can understand being really upset if you've spent almost 1,000 hours on a game and then it just completely destroys all of your progress. It also doesn't help that the developer hasn't updated the game since January of 2022, so it doesn't look like this issue is getting fixed anytime soon. I obviously didn't experience this issue while playing the game, but I also didn't put hundreds of hours into it. There's also some complaints about the UI, which I do admit can be a bit clunky. There's far too many submenus and just not enough information displayed on the side panel at once. It's also very clear that this was at one point a mobile game that was just ported over to PC. Also, not really a complaint, but the game is called Idle Atomic, but when it shows up in your Steam library, it's titled Idle Wasteland. I didn't dislike this game at all, though. It isn't the best incremental game that I've ever played, but it also isn't the worst. I think you could have some fun with it, but that of course comes with the caveat that your save and progress might be wiped. So I guess I recommend this with the annotation that you enter at your own risk. It's just such a shame to see a decently successful game be held back by something so small and fixable. It's not the perfect game, but it could have good reception if it didn't just erase your save. I'm sure the dev could have easily gotten crash logs or something and figured out what the issue was. Regardless, Idle Wasteland is not getting updated anytime soon and seems to be stuck in this state for the foreseeable future. But I think this review is my favorite. Fun game, completely abandoned. Save data gets randomly corrupted and backing up your save files is a mess. Not worth investing the time into. 3,576.8 hours. Project Cobalt is a survival action game developed by Oxygen Studio. It was released on August 18th, 2025 and currently has mixed review status on Steam, with 34 total reviews, 61% of those being positive. Project Cobalt is currently in early access and all things considered is in sort of a decent state for an early access game. But Project Cobalt isn't a game that has flaws in its functionality. The flaws are mostly in originality, design, and general premise. Project Cobalt begins with a cutscene that has text that scrolls far too fast to even be able to read it. I think you're supposed to be a part of some sort of program, and you're captured and forced to live on an island and survive. Once on the island, you go through the basic motions of any survival game. You collect sticks and stones, craft some tools, use those tools to harvest more resources from trees and rocks. Eventually, you're tasked with going out into the ocean and mining the seabed for ore. Of course, you can craft tools from your inventory like pickaxes or daggers, but you can craft even more complex buildings from the building journal. These buildings will allow you to build even more tools to refine resources into rope or cloth. Some of them are meant for storing larger resources like logs. A lot of this is pretty standard fare, and aside from some other complaints I'll talk about in a second, this is my biggest problem with the game. There's really nothing new going on here. Project Cobalt in its bones is like every single other survival game out there. The only thing that I've seen that it does relatively new is the shopping system. You can sell things at the trader and then use that money to buy resources or tools from the trader. But even that has been done in farming simulator games. I'm sure there are even some survival games out there that I haven't played that already have this mechanic. I just don't think I've seen it on an island before, for what it's worth. Outside of that, it feels like any generic clone on the market, once again trying to get attention and profit off of the genre like anyone else. Speaking of that, Oxygen Studio, the developer of Project Cobalt, has been absolutely churning out games for the past 2 years. Their first game was released in November 2023 and was called Ground Parkour First Mission. They've released 9 games in 2 years, an absolutely ridiculous amount of products to be able to churn out. I would imagine that some of this has to be due to purchased assets bought on the Unreal or Unity store, but their last few games, starting earlier this year, all use AI in some form or another. Submaris, Night Market Simulator, Sweet Toys Simulator, and Project Cobalt all use AI for icons, Steam headers, or other assets. They claim that AI was only used in concepting, but I mean, come on, look at this image. And there's no telling what else they've used AI to create. Most of these recent 4 games are also just blatant copies of other games as well. Sweet Toys Simulator is just a ripoff of Candy and Toys Store Simulator, which also used AI to create their logo. And Submaris is just an underwater version of a game about digging a hole. Still, the developers maintain that their goal with Project Cobalt is to make a game that will be constantly updated with new content and create a dream survival game. They have released consistent patches and content since release, and while some of these contained a lot of new structures, most of them are just 1 or 2 new pieces of equipment to use. The most recent update was in November this year, so who knows if they continue trying to refine the gameplay of Project Cobalt or swap to some other new trend and try to chase the money once again. Regardless, the AI in Project Cobalt that I could confirm just looked cheap and made the game look even worse than having standard assets. It sticks out like a sore thumb and it doesn't help your game at all. I mean, the header for the Steam store looks like they typed "create an image of Joel from The Last of Us stranded on an island." But it doesn't seem like Oxygen Studios' motives here are to create passion projects, but to churn out as much stuff as they possibly can, in the hopes that one of these projects manages to stick. I don't think it will, but as it currently stands, I would not recommend Project Cobalt. Motorbike Simulator MX Driving is a racing game developed by Yusuf Islam Seyhan. It was released on July 10th, 2024. Coming soon from the team that brought you Political Run World Leader, Brawl Arena Shooter, and the critically acclaimed Town Market Simulator 2025. I'm ashamed to say that I actually reviewed that last one in this series before. This developer, like many others in this series of videos, seems intent on just churning out as much slop as they possibly can. 45 games since November 25th, 2022. That is 15 games a year for 3 years straight. Absolutely insane. Regardless, Motorbike Simulator MX Driving is not even really a racing game, though I described it as that earlier. There isn't really any racing in it. There are a few races against time, but you can't race at all against other racers. It is literally just MX driving. And you know where the most exciting place to drive motorbikes is. Not big parks with sick jumps. in a bustling city full of cars. There's basically 4 blocks here for us to drive around in, and the controls are fucking awful. I tried this both on my mouse and keyboard and with a controller because the game gives you that option. Mouse and keyboard was pretty bad, but I think it's mostly because of the way that the actual bike moves. You can barely reverse, turning is awful, there's no handbrake or slick turning that lets you slide around corners. But controller was even worse because the accelerate and brake buttons aren't mapped to the triggers like most games. No, that would be too convenient. It's mapped to the left stick. You push the left stick up or down to speed up or stop. God awful. So what exactly are you supposed to do in the game? Well, there are small caches of money stored around the city that you can grab. This money can be used to buy 2 different vehicles, one of them being an ATV. You can also earn cash from the only other activity that you're allowed to participate in, and that's time trials. There are 2 time trials in this entire game, one that sees you weaving through the city streets and one that's on the highway. The one weaving through the city streets doesn't even show you where to go, and sometimes the checkpoints are too far off for you to even see where the next one is. The one on the highway is a bit better, but that's just because you know where you're going. Speaking of the highway, there's a massive loop that runs around the city, and there's no cars on it whatsoever. Want to know why there's no cars on it? Because it's just a big loop. It doesn't leave the city or go anywhere different in the city. The enter and exit are in the same place. So this road solely exists to ride around in a big circle and then come back. This game was released in July, and there was one singular update for it, which I believe added NPC cars to the city, and I quote, a responsive and immersive camera. I can confirm there's nothing responsive or immersive about this camera. They released that update in August and then quickly had to move on because obviously they needed to develop Wolf Simulator Silent Pause, Block Master 3D Puzzle, Tower Defense Goblin Wars, Snake Classic 3D Reborn, Ninja Wars Battle Simulator, Town Market Simulator 2025, Market Street Tycoon Simulator, Extreme Hill Driver, and Brawl Arena Shooter, all in the next year. Jeez, must have had a deadline or something. The craziest thing is that the Steam description says, hit the gas in Motorbike Simulator MX Driving, equipped with realistic 3D graphics and adrenaline-filled jumps. Jumps? Where are the jumps in the game? The only jump I found was when I slammed my bike into a wall and it caused me to shoot 10 feet into the air. In all seriousness, this is just a nothing game, as most of these developers' games are. They are very small projects designed to entice someone into thinking they're full games with a lot of functionality. I can't be terribly mad because it was only $1, but honestly this game would have only been worth the money if it was released on phones in like 2010. Then I might have said, oh wow, that's cool, you can do something like this on a phone now. With that, we've talked about another 9 of the worst reviewed games on Steam. Let me know in the comments below if you've played any of these games, was I correct, or were some of these underrated gems? Also, let me know in the comments what the worst game you've ever played on Steam is. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe as it supports the channel. You can also subscribe to the Patreon to join this list of fantastic people right here. I also post exclusive monthly media reports where I talk about every piece of media that I consumed in the previous month, only available on the Patreon. The link is in the description. Bye, Dad.